Hey everybody, John Shell, the Cruise Addicts here. Thank you all for taking the time to join us this Sunday afternoon. I hope everything is going well where you are. And today we're actually talking about Viking cruising in 2025. And we try to cover this at the beginning of the year. We had a little bit of delays, but here we are in February. And we want to talk about don't make these costly mistakes when you're taking your Viking cruise. And so we've got a special guest here. I don't know if you've watched our live streams before, but we've got Michael Consoli. And if you don't know who Michael Consoli is, you can actually say he's the top global producer for Viking cruises, not for just 1 year or even last year, but for the last 9 years. So he sells more Viking cruises than anyone else in the whole entire world. And it gives him a wealth of knowledge. And he's going to share that with you just as he shares with his clients every day. And we're going to actually put some of his information down below if you're actually interested in working with him. He also is a top global producer for many other brands, and he was inducted in the CLIA Hall of Fame in 2023. So let's get Michael on here. Hey, Michael, happy Sunday to you, and thank you again for joining us.
Hey, John, good. How are you?
Good. And we're going to talk about it. It's that, new year. Like I said, you were actually away doing some big shows all around the country. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we do the travel and adventure shows every year in Chicago and New York. It's a great way for us to, keep up with our clients and get to see them and visit with them, but also, obviously to develop business. So yeah, they're great shows, the travel and adventure shows, and they're all over the country.
I'm surprised you don't do talks, more talks, because I'm sure you're in demand, because I know you've been in a lot of publications where people are trying to wonder, they're like, your growth and your client base is so big that I know a lot of other companies try to learn from you, right?
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of other agents that, want us to, mentor them and things like that. And we do, share a lot of our successes with, people in our field. It's something that we're really proud of and that, we've worked hard for. So it's great recognition when somebody else wants to, see how they can develop their business the way you did.
Yeah, and I know you're very humble, but I just wanted to bring that up because when people say, well, who do you recommend? I know I recommend my family and friends to you because, you just do fantastic work. And I know we've done live streams since 2022, I think it's been, or more than that, it's been quite a while now. And it's amazing all the accolades we get in the comments. So I don't want to belittle that or not acknowledge it up front. But here we're talking about, the things that cruisers shouldn't make is here specifically Viking cruisers, but a lot of this can be applied to any other brand or many different brands. We're going to kind of go deep down in some of the Viking things, but don't make these mistakes when you're actually planning your cruise.
Yeah, well, you don't want to make some basic mistakes simply because, look, every vacation is an investment. And so you want to be sure that you're, making the right choices of where you're spending your money.
Right. So we've got some Viking news. I want to just get this out of the way right off the top. Viking actually announced a new world cruise for 26 and 27. And so it's really going to be amazing for people that like this. And I know you have many clients that have done this, and I've actually had a chance to go on the first one that was in Miami. And then I also got on board one in Los Angeles when they did a naming ceremony. So it's really, really nice. And people are super excited about this. What can you tell us about that if you could?
Well, the New World Cruise, I mean, it is, 5 months really of amazing places to go and see. And it's actually offered in several different forms: Fort Lauderdale to London, Los Angeles to London, or they can do Fort Lauderdale to Stockholm or Los Angeles to Stockholm. So it's a nice long cruise. You have a choice of different itineraries, all on the same ship. And I think that, our clients that do world cruises, I have guests that do world cruises like every other year. I have one guest that does it every year. But I have several couples that do it every other year, and they really look forward to planning that trip. It's a year in the making, even before they depart. So yeah, it's very exciting when we see the world cruise itinerary is released.
Yeah, so you kind of alluded to it, that people actually can book different segments to it often, right? They don't have to do the whole 5 months.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the way that Viking offers it. Usually they do the whole world cruise first, and they'll sell that. And if it sells, like last year or the year before, I think the whole thing sold out in a matter of weeks. And then they had to introduce another world cruise that they sold also in segments. So yes, there will be at some point some grand voyages that are part of the World Cruise offered, whether it's on the ship that they're doing now with the World Cruise or another ship. They definitely will offer the grand voyages, which are going to be 35 days or longer. Segments of, yeah.
So I'm going to put your information down below. If you would like to contact Michael and ask him about this cruise or any other ones that we mentioned here, you can email him at michael@planmycruise.com, visit his website at planmycruise.com, or give him a call at 1-800-913-7245. He'd love to hear from you. And, we haven't said, I normally always say this at the top of these live streams, this is very interactive, folks. Please ask your questions below, make a comment on something we're talking about. We're going to go through these comments after we cover these top things where these mistakes that you don't want to make in 2025 or in the future for a cruise. Some of this might be commonplace for some veteran cruisers, but then again, you may have forgotten some of these things or just haven't thought of it. So that's why we're here for. And also all these live streams. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, John, one thing you don't want to make a mistake on is on a world cruise. So, you definitely, if you're thinking about, I just have to interject this now because it's just appropriate. If you're thinking about a world cruise, the best thing that you could do is work with a qualified travel advisor who's going to assist you with the planning and making sure that you're getting everything out of that investment. These trips are $75,000, $150,000, $250,000, depending on the category cabin. And they are very, they're to get the best value out of them. They are a great value, by the way, but to get the best value out of it and to make sure you're taking advantage of all of the amenities that are offered and the things that Viking offers their guests, you really need to work with a qualified travel agent. That is going to help you get the most for your money. That person's going to be able to talk you through the process, tell you what the caveats are, help you with your planning. And make sure that you don't make a mistake in planning a trip, which for most people would be the trip of a lifetime. And so, as I said, a vacation or a trip like that is an investment, whether it's $5,000 or $500,000. We want to make sure that the guest gets the most for their money, and the only way that they're going to come back to us is if we help them do that, if we steer them right. And so, a world cruise really requires a lot of attention that a travel agent or travel advisor can help you get the most out of. And also, we usually have a significant gift for our clients when they book a world cruise with us. In addition to all the amenities and savings that Viking provides, we can bring more to the table so that they're getting more out of the trip booking through us than if they booked independently or with Viking directly.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. And so we're going to get right into the mistakes that you don't want to make in 2025, like we talked about. And the first one, Michael, is get your passport and documents order. I see this so much talk about on the groups. People are concerned about their visas. And even it's all the people that on the group, what do they write back? The first thing they write, contact your travel agent. Why are you on a group? And I'm like, hey, the groups are actually here to ask questions, but some of the people can be pretty harsh, right? So what advice do you have as far as passport information, visas, so on and so forth?
Look, you always want to look at your passport every year. Make sure it's good for the whole year. The reason I say that is because you wouldn't believe how many people we book on a trip that's leaving in 3 months and they're like, oh my God, my passport is expired. You need to make sure that your passport is always current and that you have at least 6 months left from your return date. So the passport cannot expire less than 6 months from your return date on that trip. And so you want to make sure that that's in order. That's really important. And as I said, we tell our clients and remind our clients to make sure that their passport is good for the entire year at the beginning of the year so that they can take advantage of a last minute special or an emergency trip if they have to. And without a passport, you're not gonna be able to do that. And if you wait too long, then you have to wait until like the day before to go down to the passport office and get the passport. So we do encourage our guests to make sure they're current. And I recommend looking at your passport once a year to make sure it's good for the entire year, and then you won't have that problem.
And what about visas? I haven't been to a place where I need a visa yet, but I know there's certain places in the world where you have to have it. It's kind of complex to get it done, right?
Yeah, and look, there are great companies and services that provide visa assistance, and we do work with a lot of them. I mean, Viking does obviously recommend their own as well. But the right travel advisor can steer you in the right direction of whether or not you need to use a visa service or if it's something that you can do on your own. And many of these visas that we see, like for Turkey or some of these other countries that are doing them, Australia, New Zealand, that are doing them electronically, you really don't need to have a visa service for. The complicated ones like China, those you may need to have a visa service do for you if you live in an area where you can't get to a consulate or something, which most people don't. So a visa service can be very, very helpful in getting that done. They will track, your passport so that it doesn't get lost and that kind of thing. So but again, it goes back to using the right travel advisor to help you navigate the necessities of the trip and make sure that you're fully prepared to travel when the time comes.
Right. And the next thing is pick the right time of year. Sounds kind of simple, doesn't it?
It does. It's so funny to me. I mean, I think people, and I have a lot of people say, well, what's the right time of year to go, or what's the right time to travel? And the truth is that there are ideal times to be in certain parts of the world. And, if you look at Egypt or Australia, New Zealand, or even on the rivers in Europe, there are really, really, prime times to go where you're going to have great weather, lower crowds, no water level issues on the river, or likely no water level issues on the river. And so that's where somebody can steer you in the right direction. It's really important to pick the right time of year. If you go to Greece in the off season, there are a lot of things that are closed at that time of the year, just because those people, their shops are open, their restaurants are open all during high season, and they want to take a break. So, a lot of times people choose the trip based on price and, what's the lowest price time of the year to go? Well, there is a trade-off for that. And so somebody who understands that and understands the value of traveling at a certain time of the year or avoiding certain times of the year are really going to make sure that you get the most for your money. If you're paying half the price but only getting a third of the experience, then maybe it's not worth the time to go. So somebody is going to be able to help you navigate that.
Yeah, we were in the Mediterranean in July, and it was really hot. And so I don't know if when you're walking around everywhere, and it was kind of brutal at times. So I don't think it's for everybody. It's little things like that, right?
Right, and everybody has their nuances. Everybody is different, right? So not everybody's going to want to go when it's warm or when it's cold, or not everybody's going to want. Some people don't care about getting off the ship. They don't care when they go, or that's what travel advisor is going to help them do, is figure out where the value is for them and where they can get the best value. If you have a school teacher that can only be off in June, July, and August, well, that's their value. So, and some people, they can be off whenever. So it just depends. And that's why, navigating this on your own can be quite complicated. And, there are risks involved in that. And, with most travel advisors, us included, we do not charge a fee for our services. There is no fee. The guest is not paying more. In fact, the majority of the time they are getting more by working through a travel advisor.
Right. And the next thing we're going to touch is not booking a pre and post cruise extension. And I think this is a biggie, isn't it?
Oh, I do too. And I think that we talk about this all the time during the live streams about the pre and post extensions. If the guest has the time, when you get on board a ship on most itineraries, you're not spending time in that city. You're getting, like, for instance, in Alaska, you're getting on board the ship in Vancouver and leaving that day. So you don't have a chance to see Vancouver, or you don't have a chance to see Anchorage, or, you won't have the chance to see Venice or Athens, or because, you're getting on board the ship and the ship is leaving. Some of the itineraries that Viking offers, the ship's overnight in cities, which is very nice. It builds in a buffer for the guest and still gives them a full day to see, that particular city. But in those cities where you don't do that, it is necessary in order to really get the experience to do an extension. And many of the extensions that Viking offers aren't even in the embarkation city. Like when you look at river cruising on the Danube and being able to go to Prague. I mean, Prague is one of the most popular extensions offered. And, it's nowhere near where the ship leaves from. So, and it's not something that would be easy to do on your own. So, there are plenty of cities where you can do that stuff on your own, and plenty where you really need to have your handheld. And so, that's something that we help our guests navigate and figure out, where they want to spend that extra time. But I will say that we always recommend coming in at least the day before, if not 2 days before, just so that you don't miss the ship if there's a delay or a flight problem, things like that.
Very good. Yeah, I think that's the very least. And I kind of learned this kind of like it, wasn't even my own doing. I just started doing different trips where it came with an extra day, and it just made a world of a difference as far as the quality of that first day when you're getting on board with Viking or another brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this seems like a little, a thing that people don't think about, but it's true too. Don't overpack your luggage.
Yeah, no, for sure. People overpack. Look, and I'm totally guilty of it. I mean, my team and I just went to New York for a weekend, and I got razzed because, I had, this huge suitcase for 3 days, but I can't help it. I have to have choices. So I'm probably the worst person to criticize anybody who overpacks, but I do think that people don't realize that, for instance, there's laundry service on board, or on the ocean products, there's a laundrette that they can use so that they don't have to bring clothes for every single day. And, and one outfit for the day, one outfit at night, things like that. So you definitely don't want to overpack. And there are several trips where it is really advised that you don't overpack, or you shouldn't. Egypt is one of those trips, for instance, because you're going to be on some, charter flights, some smaller planes, things like that. But, it's very easy to overpack and bring all this stuff. And, I see all these posts on Facebook about magnetic hooks and over the door shoe hangers and all this stuff to put all your stuff in, which, on a world cruise, absolutely, you're going to. That's why they even offer luggage forward on a world cruise, because they know you're going to need more luggage than you would on a 7-night cruise. But it's not necessary really on some of these shorter cruises. And it's fun to plan that way, but for practical purposes, you're probably not going to use most of that stuff. So I would just pack what you need. And, when I travel, I think to myself, okay, where am I going? Is it a city where I could buy something if I forgot it? And that eases my mind, right? So I am also a type A control freak personality. And so that's how I satiate myself. I say, look, if I can buy it when I get there, I'll be okay. So, try not to overpack, because it's just going to bog you down.
And we were probably both old school cruisers, where we cruised in the 90s and 80s, and where you had to have a tuxedo and formal attire.
I was in high school in the 80s, John. So
But you used to have to really dress up on a cruise. Like formal night was really a serious thing. But Viking isn't like that, is it?
No. It's casual all the time. So I mean, they don't allow jeans in the dining room, or shorts, or flip flops, or anything like that. But it's also no dress up nights, no jackets, no ties, no gowns, any of that. It's all casual. So there really isn't a reason to overpack and, or overthink what you're bringing, because travel is supposed to be fun. And if you're stressing yourself out about trying to fit everything in a carry-on bag because you read somewhere that, somebody else does that, then, I mean, you're stressing yourself out. You have to bring what's comfortable for you. I have clients that they say they travel with just a carry-on bag. I can't even think about that. Just my work stuff fits in my carry-on bag. I mean, I need to have a bag for clothes. So, I think that you have to make packing not a stressful thing, but plan properly. Get your bag out, start putting stuff in the guest bedroom on the bed, figure out what you can eliminate, figure out what you need more of, and then, do it over a period of a couple weeks and not the night before, and you won't end up overpacking.
One of the things that we learned was shoes. Sometimes they're heavier than you think. They take up a lot of space because they're shaped strangely, and you probably don't need 5 pairs of shoes to go on a cruise. You can probably get by with a smaller amount, and get by with it, because especially on a Viking cruise where you're not necessarily doing so many things. Sometimes if you have different places call for different things, but those little things add up.
Yeah, for sure.
Shoes. Go ahead.
Shoes are one of them for sure.
So this is another big one. Viking Air Plus says use Viking Air Plus as your recommendation, right?
Oh, 100%. I think that, not having a say or not having control over the air schedule, some control, right? Within Air Plus allows the guests to have control over the air schedule from within Viking's contracted rate. So it does give us the option of being able to help the guests find flights that meet their criteria, but also fall under the cruise line's contracted rate. And so not choosing that, and all of these things that we hear online about, oh, they changed my flights at the last minute, blah, blah, blah. Without Air Plus, we have no recourse if the cruise line or the airline changes the flights, because the guest who didn't take Air Plus decided that they were going to leave that step up to the cruise line. And in doing so, they may end up with a last minute change, which is why we recommend guests have Air Plus so that they have a say. And look, even guests who have Air Plus, the airline's schedules get changed by the airline or may have to be reaccommodated a different way. I'm not saying that Air Plus gives you a guarantee of that, but it certainly gives you way more control than just having the cruise line choose what they can choose and assign you a schedule. So we highly recommend Air Plus so that guests are able to have a say as to how they're routed or what airline they're on, or even, where they sit on the plane.
So just to give me a list of everything Viking Air Plus does, because I don't know if everyone knows what it is. Can you give us a quick, you kind of just touched on it, but can you go over it real briefly again, like a list of things?
Sure. So the cruise line, Viking offers 3 different types of air. Okay. The air that you get with the package, let's say that, the air package you purchased is $9.99. That's what we call a contracted rate. The cruise line works with contracted rates. So with the air program, the guest is just going to be assigned a schedule 4 or 5 months prior to departure. And they're kind of stuck with what they get because they have no say, right? They let the cruise line decide what schedule they get. So maybe the first time they get that schedule, it's favorable. But let's say there's a schedule change and then they get booted off that schedule and then they end up with a different schedule that they absolutely hate. Without Air Plus, there's no changing that schedule to something that they want. That being said, yes, the guest can add Air Plus at that point, but if you're 4 months before the departure, the people who had Air Plus have already picked over all the good flights. And so what you're going to have left to choose from under the cruise line's contracted rate is going to be less than it was 2 months ago when they assigned it to you. So some people are perfectly happy with that. They don't care how they get there. They don't want to spend the extra money. They just want to, have the cruise line take care of their flights, and they're happy to have a schedule assigned. The second way that can be done is with My Viking Air, which is in the My Viking Journey portal. The guest can choose the air schedule 5 months prior to departure from within the contracted rate online in the My Viking Journey portal. But again, that is very limited. The guest is still limited to the contracted rate that the cruise line has. It's still limited to what the computer can present to the guest in a logical way, right? So we're not working with a human who could say, okay, I could put you on Delta here and Air France there. The computer's saying, this is the only combination I have of flights that will work for you. And you can choose from these 2, but that's it. And then, that's the say the guest gets without having to pay a fee. But with Air Plus, the guest has the opportunity as early as 10 months prior. We generally recommend 9 months prior to be able to select the air schedule from within the cruise line's contracted rates. What that means is that the cruise line doesn't have a contract on every single flight. It doesn't mean that the guest is automatically going to get the direct flight. It means that if the schedule that the guest wants prices under Viking's contracts with that airline, then they can have that schedule as early as 10 months prior. Again, we recommend 9 months prior for many reasons. And so, but it also gives the guests some control 4 months later when that flight is canceled or changed as to what the new schedule will be. And it is really important. It has helped my clients get reasonable schedules that they're happy with early, and it gives them control over the schedule. Again, it does have to fall under the cruise line's contracted rate, but it's a way to have a say and still keep the value of what Viking offers when it comes to air as far as the savings. So, it's not, people mistake it that it's going to give them extra leg room or, things like that. It is not. It is a service that Viking offers for $150 per person that will give you some say as to how the flights are routed as early as 10 months prior to departure.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that's an extra 4 to 5 months of peace of mind, or you can pick ahead of the general public.
Exactly. So, we have found that, again, that it's a little bit later is the sweet spot, but we think that it's really important to have because It helps us get the air fixed when there is a problem. And all these problems that people read about on Facebook, many times the guest didn't have Air Plus or didn't work with a human to get the schedule done. And as a travel advisor, as our guests, we handle that step for them. So we are doing that legwork. We are on the phone with the air department getting that done. And when there's a problem, we're the ones on hold getting it fixed for them so that they don't have to interrupt their day to get that done. So it is something that helps us get our clients what they want.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that broad explanation, because I know people on the Facebook group get so confused with this, and it's good they have a reference now online here that they can watch and learn about this. And so the next one is going to be schedule enough time between connecting flights. And wow, this is a biggie, isn't it?
It is a biggie, because it's a great segue into what we were just talking about, because without Air Plus, you don't really have a say as to that, right? And so sometimes like a guest will get a 90-minute connection in Frankfurt. And while that's a legal connection with the airline, it's definitely not a recommended connection time. We would recommend a minimum of at least 2 hours in Frankfurt. So you want to make sure that you do have enough time at connecting. And every airport is different. There are some airports in Europe where 90 minutes would be perfectly fine. There are others where you're going to need 3 hours to connect. So, working with somebody that understands the nuances of that part of the air program is really going to benefit the guest. But you don't ever want to accept a short layover or something that's going to be uncomfortable for you. Otherwise, if you miss the flight or there's a slight delay, you're not going to get there, or you may get there and your luggage not get there because it didn't make the connection. So it's really important to make sure you look and see that you have enough time between flights. And I just want to say this: I have a lot of clients who call and say, "Oh, there's a 3.5 hour layover, or there's a 4 hour layover." Those, sometimes we select those flights that have a longer layover so that if there's a delay or cancellation on their first flight where they're connecting, we can get them there again on another flight a little bit later. So sometimes long connection times are on purpose, and because of the city that they're coming from or the city that they're going to is a city that we may see a lot more complications with flight issues.
And, I don't think people realize that sometimes a lot of these airports in Europe, you have to get off at the tarmac. You have to get on a bus. It takes you to a different terminal. You have to go back through security, which sometimes they're going to kick your bag aside and you're going to go through secondary security. And then you're going to continue on to your gate, which might be at another area. So it can really add up quick. It's not a quick thing in some of these airports, right?
Go through passport control, your first entrance into the EU or something like that. Yeah, it's something that you really want to know what the process is going to be when you get there. And, this is something that we help our guests with all the time.
And that goes to our next thing. You kind of touched on this at the beginning, but use a professional travel agent. Like you said, it costs no fees. You're not stuck with a 800 line talking to someone that you haven't have a personal relationship with, and many other little things, right?
Yeah, 100%. Look, we work very hard to develop great relationships with our clients. We feel it's very important to understand the guests' travel needs, and everybody's different. And so in doing so, we're able to provide a level of service that I think our guests really appreciate, being able to be proactive and looking at problems and helping them avoid the pitfalls of what can happen with travel. And again, it's not something that costs them anything. It's something that is going to add value to their experience because they're going to be better prepared. And we're going to make sure that we're looking out for the caveats. The connection times is a great example. And for me, in my business personally, with the number of travelers we do every year, I look at every single air schedule that comes through our office. So every single day I come into air schedules, I review them, I change them before the guest even knows that they've been changed, because we want to make sure that they're not getting something that's not going to work for them. So, and I think that that's really important, that you have somebody that's going to put their eyes on your schedule and make sure that you're going to get there, that the plan is to get you there in the most efficient way. And, it happens with everybody. There's cancellations, there's weather issues, there's mechanical issues, there's a lot of things that could happen. But making sure that you have the safety net of a travel advisor that can assist you with navigating those problems. I mean, just overnight at 1:30 this morning, I got a call from a client whose flight was canceled. And they were heading to their trip, and I was able to get them on a flight first thing this morning. They're going to get there about 8 hours later, but they're getting to where they need to go and when they need to be there. And they're not doing it with 400 other people that were on that same flight waiting in line at the airport. We were able to assist them right away. So that's something that you can't really put a price tag on when you're in an airport, trying to get somewhere. That's a service that we provide that doesn't cost the guest anything, and it's going to be, a value to the guest for sure.
And I see in the comments, people have asked, we've been doing this for several years now. People always ask how they can work with you.
Oh, I mean, they can reach us by calling the 800 number, 800-913-7245, or michael@planmycruise.com. My team and I work around the clock to make sure that our guests are well taken care of. And I have a very seasoned team that I work with that is able to answer questions and help people make decisions. And, and I am always available to the guest as well. I talk to all of these clients every single day. But a lot of times I need help with taking payments and answering questions, and my team is excellent at that. And they're a great asset to me. So,
Right.
And they will be to anybody that works with us.
That's wonderful. And this is going right back into it. It's piggybacking into use proper travel insurance. And why? Because it's right there with having the proper travel agent in your corner that has your back.
Yeah, and I say this every day. I mean, it doesn't matter to me which insurance you choose, just that you have travel insurance. There are so many reasons to have it. Again, this morning, our travel insurance, for instance, has a built-in benefit that the guests can register. If their flight is delayed by a certain number of hours, the insurance company will pay them $200 just because the flight was delayed. So, every insurer is different. The policy that we sell is proprietary to us, and it is a really great policy that allows the guest to take it at final payment and still cover pre-existing conditions. But it's not necessarily the right policy for everyone. So we talked with the guest about what might be the right policy for them, whether it's the Viking policy or our policy or the policy that they're using with another vendor. And we help them determine what's best for them. But absolutely, you need to have travel insurance. It is by far the most overlooked thing. I think that the mistake that people make. I had a guest over the weekend that, he has a $35,000 trip he's leaving on in 2 weeks. And he found out that his wife has to have some surgery, and they declined travel insurance. He thought he might be able to do that with his credit card company, and he can't. And so now they are going to be out the $35,000 because they have no travel insurance at all. And, I can count on one hand how many times that has happened to one of my clients, just because we really strongly advise the guests to have travel insurance. But it is, it's a big deal when that happens. And what people don't realize is it's not like going to Best Buy and buying a printer and have them offering you the travel insurance at the register. This is something that you purchase because of the things that you cannot anticipate in life. This is something that you purchase to cover not just the cost of the trip, but also, if there's something that happens on the trip, if there's trip interruption and you have to come home because somebody at home is sick or ill, or, God forbid you get sick or ill on the trip and have to be airlifted somewhere. I just had a guest 2 weeks ago that had to be airlifted from the Caribbean. And, thank God they had travel insurance. We got them, to their home hospital in about 16 hours. It was, really important that this person get back to where they can get the best care. And, that policy helped us get that done for them. And so we see so many reasons why guests need to have travel insurance, not just cancellation, not just trip delay, but also medical issues. People have to get home, things like that. It covers a myriad of things, and we really feel strongly that our guests should have it. And it is a mistake that people make all the time.
Yeah, and we've done whole hour-long live streams just on the insurance subject, and it's enlightened me too, because I think we're like, we're good. We're going on a Caribbean cruise. We're driving over to the Port of Miami. We live in Florida. No big deal. I don't need to spend that extra money. Maybe I could use that towards specialty dining or something. If you're on a budget. Right. But like you said, with Viking, these are major investments. We were just about the World Cruise. A lot of these other trips are, of course, trips of a lifetime for many people. And so it's protecting the investment, like you've said in the past. But also, you've enlightened me where, because of the volume of work you do, you've learned in your career, you've gotten those calls, like you said, at 1 o'clock in the morning for your whole career, right? And you've learned firsthand like how serious this is, and you like to say yes when those people are having the worst day of their lives, right?
Absolutely. We want to be able to say yes. If there's the person that had the delay overnight, they wanted to get a hotel room to go rest in, and we were able to get that done, and it will be paid by their insurance. And so, that's something they don't have to worry about, right? I mean, and the cost of a trip is relative. Whether you're spending, and we said this earlier in the live stream, whether you're spending $500, $5,000, or $50,000, it all has a value to the guest in a certain way, right? So somebody who's spending $1,000 a couple to go on a Caribbean cruise for 3 days or whatever, that is still relative. It's still very, it's relative to them, the amount of money that they're spending. And so, protecting that investment by having insurance is really something that I think is a no-brainer. But, people, innately want to take a risk and think that they're saving the money. And I had a client who took his whole family to on a cruise, and the wife had to be airlifted. He refused the insurance, it was a short cruise, by the way. The insurance was going to cost him $300, and he turned it down. And the wife had to be airlifted from a Caribbean island, and he had to sign a promissory note for $34,000 to get his wife to to a hospital in Miami. And, it would have all been covered by that insurance policy. And his exact words to me were, well, we're going to go, regardless of what happens. And that's not always true. So, it really is something that we believe strongly in.
One thing I liked about learning this from you was you said it's not about, us you as a company making like an extra, it's another profit center. It's so when your customer calls you, the guest calls you, and with having that moment, you can actually say yes and provide a solution.
Exactly. We don't want to have to tell them no. And I take no pleasure in telling this guest who told me, last week that his wife had to have surgery, they're not going to be able to travel. I mean, it is something that, I actually got physically upset about, because he's losing this money that we could have protected, or that he could have chosen to protect. And it would have been a covered reason for cancellation, and he would have gotten full reimbursement. I do not like to be in a situation where I have to tell the guest no, or where the guest is going to lose money. I never like that.
Right. So we're going to move on from that somber. It's always a little depressing when you hear this stuff, because it's so real. And, we've all been, like worried about things on trips. So it's a little too real for me, I think, when I talk about this.
Yeah, it's never a fun subject to talk about, because it does require that we talk about the things that happen on a trip that nobody wants to talk about. And I'll just give one more story. I have a client one of my longtime clients, one of our favorite clients that we worked with, and her husband passed away, and she is determined to still travel with their group of friends as a single, and she has the travel insurance, and the insurance is going to allow her to travel as a single. It's going to refund the insurance for him, because he passed away, the cost of the trip, and pay for her to travel as a single. And that insurance has a value to them. So I think that it's really important to keep that in mind, that it is to cover something that is unforeseen.
Right. So we're going to get back to a happier subject, must use while on board. So that varies, because we're talking about river cruise, long ships, the expedition vessels, which I love, of course, the Viking, Mississippi, and of course, ocean. So we have a broad array of different ships and what's available on board once you get on board, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the must-dos on board when I'm on board is to eat, but we definitely try everything on board as far as food goes. But, on the ocean product, I would tell people not to miss Manfredi's, not to miss going to Mamson's, things like that, taking advantage of the spa, even on the days where the ship is in port, because generally that's when they're less busy and you might actually get a deal. But the must-dos on board really vary by guest and what their needs or interests are. But there are several things. We could make a full show out of that for sure.
I just thought of a different subject. I know a lot of people in the group are always stressed about excursions. So can we touch on that for a second while we're talking about onboard things?
Sure. I think on the ocean product, one of the mistakes that is made is, people have the idea that it doesn't matter what category cabin that they're in. They'll take the lowest category cabin because, it's the lower price. And as everyone knows, on Viking, everybody is pretty much treated the same, regardless of what category you're in, with the exceptions of specialty dining and shore excursions. So most people don't realize that the shore excursions, while included, and optional excursions, they are released to you based on the category booked. So the suites get them first, then the penthouse verandas, then the deluxe verandas, and then the V1 and V2 categories get access to the excursions last. And so if it's an itinerary where it's important that you have access to the included and optional excursions and get what you want, you need to book a higher category cabin. And that's a common mistake. I mean, for these itineraries in China, for instance, where the majority of your excursions are going to be done with the team, from the ship's excursions, if you're in the V1 or V2, your chances of getting what you want as far as included or optional excursions, is very slim because everybody is using the cruise line's excursions. And so while you're guaranteed the included excursion, it may not even be assigned the time that you get to do that excursion until you get on board the ship. And so that inhibits you from being able to do an optional excursion. Or if you're assigned an 11 o'clock included excursion, you're not going to be able to do the 1 o'clock optional excursion. So it's really important that that the certain categories offer you earlier access to the excursions, and where that would be important. And that's, again, where somebody who understands the itineraries and where the ship's going and all those nuances of the different categories can really help in navigating that process.
Right. And then we're going to talk about, for tips, actually about tipping or gratuities. I know this is it seems kind of basic, but sometimes people get stressed about this, right?
Yeah. So I do think that people get stressed about it, and they get stressed, especially about the gratuities off the ship, tipping the guides and the bus drivers and things like that. And, the gratuities on board the ship can be paid, auto-applied to your shipboard account every day, or you can prepay them. Many of our guests like to prepay them because they prepay them in US dollars, or they're using onboard credit gifts to pay for their gratuities. We think it's very smart to prepay if that's what the guest is interested in, not having to worry about anything once they get on board. But as far as tipping guidelines in the port, I mean, tour guides and bus drivers, they like to be tipped in their local currency. So if you're able to do that, that is very appreciated, because otherwise they have to go and exchange that and, get less than what they normally would for those tips. So if it's possible for you to tip them in local currency, we highly recommend that. If it's not, they certainly will be happy to accept, US dollars if you're unable to tip in local currency. And generally, the guide, if they've done a great job, it might be €4 or €5 or dollars, per guide. The bus driver would be $1 or $2 per driver. Again, if they've done an exceptional job and you want to tip them, that's the amounts that we would recommend. Tipping in other parts of the world is much less than it is in the US. So it's much less expected. But I do think that as Americans, we feel compelled to tip for good service, and we should tip for good service. So if you're looking for a guideline, that's the guideline I generally share.
Wow. So we've covered a lot of amount of tips, and you did some deep dives on many different subjects. Thank you, Michael. I think you might need a break after that. But
I can tell you that.
What's that?
I need a drink of water.
Okay. So I just wanted to, I noticed a lot of people joined the live stream kind of probably 20 minutes into while we were going. So you might have missed some things. So just to let you know, all of our live streams, going back even to the first one, you can see us, we were a lot younger then, are actually recorded on YouTube and even on Facebook. If it's YouTube, just look under the live tab. You can see this one once it's finished today, and you could start over later today and catch up if you missed any of the first couple tips or just want to have it for a future reference. And of course, share this, give us a thumbs up. We'd appreciate that. And of course, Michael would love to have your business so he can hold your hand and you could be a client of his, hopefully well into the future. He'd love to have your business. So speaking, let's get into the real exciting stuff here, Michael. special rates and deals that you can share with our group?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is another reason why we think you should work with a travel agent. They're going to know all the special rates, deals, the way to save. We help our clients, save money every day with certain specials or certain amenities that are only available at certain times of the year, or promotions, things like that. Currently, Viking has this choice promotion, which is allowing the guests to choose between a double pass guest discount or maybe included Silver Spirits beverage package and gratuities, or a shipboard credit of up to $1,000, per cabin. And so, figuring out what's going to be the best value for this particular guest is part of the job that we do every day. And so helping them determine which promo would be best. And then also, I mean, look, we have a list of promos that, apply to certain sailings that are not public. The promos that we are able to assist with our guests, because we're so hands-on with this product every single day. We're very aware of the promotions that are going on, those that might have free air, or what we call, private sales, or, promotions that are not able to just be sold without the guest mentioning a code. So we're aware of those codes and are able to save our guests money by doing that. And of course, the value that we bring as far as answering questions and taking care of issues and all of that is something you really can't put a price tag on.
Great. I tell you, it is a major thing just keeping up with all the promotions as a travel agent for even just one brand, right?
It is. It's a full-time job. And, every week we come in, we review all the sales, we review the promos, and we try to make sure that we get the guests the best possible deal every time. So, it's definitely a full-time job. And look, the other part of what we do, which isn't a part of promotion or anything like that, is to understand the rules and how Viking operates and what their limitations are, and being able to explain the final payment process, the final payment dates, and all of that stuff. And having somebody that understands all the nuances of the line and not having to call 5 times to get the right answer is a value in itself.
And I tell people that as a travel agent, I remember I sold travel for a minute, and so I've got a little bit of an idea. When you call an 800 number, a lot of times they give you A, B, and C. Where as a travel agent, when they go into that their control panel, whatever for the brand, they may have A through Z as far as options and different things. It's very, very broad, and that's why having something like Michael could customize just for you, it gives you so many more options.
Yeah, it's absolutely a great way to make sure that you get what you need.
Right. And of course, you just don't want to leave that to an 800 number. You just want to have that personal relationship, because we like what we like, right?
Right. And you're going to get a different person every time. And, at least in my office with my team, we are all aware of what's going on. So we're able to assist the guest and make sure that they get the right answer the first time.
Right. So thank you all for taking the time, sticking with us. Pretty much everyone watching live, Michael, has stuck with us. We've only grown in numbers, and so many people have interacted. We appreciate the interactivity. We've taken a little bit longer for this particular live stream because we wanted to cover those key points at the beginning of the year, have a nice refresher for everybody to talk about Viking cruising in 2025. So we hope you enjoyed that. Like I said, please go back and watch it if you missed anything, and share it with your friends. And Tammy is coming to us from Facebook. She goes, glad you both are back. And thank you, Tammy. We had a little hiatus. I said I was getting a little rusty. Michael said, this is what he does. He was like, what are you talking about, Rusty?
Yeah, exactly.
And Stuart Little coming to us from Facebook. Back to you, Stuart. Good to see you again. It's been a while.
Thanks for being here, Stuart.
And we've got Wendy. She's checking in from Facebook. She goes, hello from the snowy north. I can't even say that, but she's in Tonawanda. Did I say that right? New York. Good to see you from New York, a fellow New Yorker. And
I'm glad it's not snowing here. I don't know about you, John. But
I know that snow was pretty significant we had here, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But we did have a big storm last night. But Terry Bell's checking in from Facebook. She goes, does it make more financial sense to book direct with Viking or with a travel professional? Well, I think Michael can help you with that. I know we touched on that in the live stream in 2 different times, but I would say yes, right, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, definitely working with a travel agent is going to give you the best value and make sure that you get the best savings. So it makes financial sense, in my opinion, to work with a qualified travel agent. And it's very important that the agent that you work with is qualified, that somebody that knows the product inside and out and is going to be able to lead you through the process properly. Not everybody sells everything. I know we don't sell every product. And one of the reasons why we don't do that is because we want to know, and we do sell all cruise lines, all destinations, by the way, and many tour companies as well. But we don't do everything. And the reason that we don't do everything is because we can't be all knowing. And so we know what we specialize in and the products that we understand well, and we're able to bring value to that guest. And you need to work with an agent that's going to bring value to your experience, and an agent that is qualified and has a great understanding of the product that you're looking at.
Right, Terry. So please reach out to Michael if you're interested in working with him. His phone number's down there, and 1-800-913-7245. And just send him an email with any questions or concerns. He'd love to give you a quote on maybe an upcoming trip. Michael@planmycruise.com. And how long have you been in business, Michael?
This is our 23rd year.
Wow. I'm not even that old, that's amazing. But no, that's great. And of course, like we said at the top of the show, he's the world's largest seller for Viking Cruise for the last 9 years. He's in the CLIA, the Cruise Line Industry Association Hall of Fame. He's a top producer, but also he's also provides the best service to his clients. It's more than just a number of, as far as volume goes. It's actually the service after the sale, during the sale, and all that hand holding he was talking about. That's what makes a great travel professional like he is and his team. So we hope you work with him. And Sadie actually had a great question. She goes, she's coming to us, Sadie Brown, she's coming to us from YouTube. She goes, what constitute off season in Greece and the Mediterranean? Great question.
Yeah, I would be, the winter time. So the winter schedule, November, December, January, February, the season really is March through October. Maybe the first couple weeks of November tends to be good for Greece. But once you get into the cold weather months, they are taking time off to spend with family, and you're going to see less things open at that time of the year.
Right. And Edward's coming to us from Facebook. He says, please comment on the stateroom GTY, or the guarantee, I believe, designation. And does Viking oversell? And does Viking even have guaranteed cabins? I don't know if they do or not.
They do. They offer guaranteed cabins, and many times they do so, based on an algorithm that tells them what the attrition is going to be on a certain sailing. And so would I say that they oversell? It does happen, and we have seen it happen. I think that people that are on the discussion boards or on, chat boards or Facebook have seen offers because Viking has oversold a sailing. We saw it a lot, right after COVID, simply because the cruise line was selling cabins, thinking that more people would cancel because of what was going on in the world. But now we see that part slow down. The guarantee designation means that the cruise line guarantees you that category cabin, and the cabin would be assigned later. Sometimes it can result in an upgrade because maybe they're not able to open that category or have a space in that category, so you might go higher. So the term actually means that they guarantee you that category or higher. It's just that the cabin is assigned at a later date. So I don't think that they intentionally oversell, but it does happen.
Okay. And Carla had a good question. She goes, she's coming to us from Facebook. Did you say no jeans in the dining room?
Yeah. So, there is some lax requirements on maybe on river or maybe for Alaska, for instance, but the majority of the ocean product doesn't allow jeans in the dining room. So, you really have to know what the dress code is. I tell my clients to go in knowing that they're not going to allow jeans in the dining room. And then if they do, great. But as a general rule, they don't allow, blue jeans in the dining room.
It's funny. I was in a formal business this week, and they actually had dressed jeans. First time I've ever seen that or not. But, jeans are getting dressier. So I'm sure that's what people are asking about, because it's got the jeans are going formal. I can't talk today. I'm sorry.
Yeah. They have dress. They have sweatpants that look like khakis. So maybe you can fool them, but but I think just as a general rule, just not to have somebody say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to seat you because you have, denim jeans on." I would make sure that you know those rules before you go in.
Yeah. So Kathy's coming to us from YouTube. She goes to book the Pharaohs and Pyramids cruise for 2026. Do you have an idea which hotels Viking uses in Cairo? Also, have you done the balloon ride? She's thinking about it, but she's a little nervous, Michael. Any ideas on that?
So the hotels typically that Viking uses in Cairo is the Fairmont at the beginning. And then they also use the Intercontinental generally because that itinerary has a one-night post. They generally use the Intercontinental City Stars at the end for the one night after the trip. And no, I have not done the balloon ride, but have had many clients do it and really love it. I would encourage you to do it. You know, you have to live in the moment. So I definitely, I'm actually doing the itinerary myself in November, and I will be doing the balloon ride. So I definitely would recommend that you do it, though.
It looks incredible. I think Justify would be nervous, but you got to do it. So
right.
You probably won't regret it. And Sheila, this is a great question. Sheila's coming to us from YouTube. Thanks for writing, Sheila. She goes, we were in Iceland and got a cold. That's when we found out there's no OTC medicine in Iceland. Are there other countries like this? Couldn't even get an aspirin.
Wow, that's a great question, Sheila. And I would have to research that. I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sure there are other countries that don't offer over-the-counter medicines, but off the top of my head, I couldn't list them for you.
So one tip I've got for this, Sheila, is I think it was my first river cruise. I got sick in Germany, and it was got really, really sick and had to get medication. It was really difficult to find it because we're in these small villages and there's not a Walgreens to walk up to. And you'd be shocked to find out that when you're in other countries, what you normally find easy to find and get, like your go-to, isn't there. So it got difficult. We had to talk to a pharmacist in France. There was a language barrier because this was a small village. And so now I always take Dayquil, NyQuil, and Dayquil because that's my go-to. And any other medication, pack it along. I've never had a problem. I've actually given it out to other passengers that we've met and had dinner with and stuff that got sick. One was even a doctor, believe it or not. So it saved me, and that's my go-to. I'll either buy like some to bring with me, and luckily I haven't gotten sick like that before, but it was really, really bad. So I highly recommend that. Just basically cover yourself. You're not going to have any problems at the airports. At least I haven't had any, and I think you'd be good to go.
We encourage our guests to make a travel bag of medications that they could take with them. We talked briefly about not overpacking, but I think this is definitely a necessity, having a bag that has some prescribed medicines that your doctor can provide to you in certain situations, knowing that you're traveling. And then in addition, the things like John mentioned, an antihistamine, Benadryl, Pepto-Bismol, things that you need to have over the counter that you may not be able to get in the country that you're going to. And just having that with you so that you have it when you need it is a very smart thing to do, and making sure that you have a basic necessity kit of medications that you take with you on every trip.
Right. Great. Thanks for that. Thanks again, Sheila. Mary Ann McDowell is checking in from Facebook. She goes, if we book it with an agent and do Air Plus, do we still have the say over the air flights without having to go through the agent?
You do, Marianne. I would just say that in our case, dealing with, letting us deal with it for you is going to save you some frustration. So we deal with them every day. And the team that I work with is very seasoned and able to do that. But yes, you still have access to call the air department directly, even if you work with an agent, to make changes or, look at the schedule or seat assignments. Any of that is still accessible to you. You would not have to work through us to get that done, although we do think that it's a benefit to do so.
Yeah, and Cindy's checking in from YouTube. Thanks, Cindy, for asking the question. She goes, can you ask for direct flights with Viking Air Plus? Great question.
You can ask for direct flights, and many times, we are able to get the direct flights under the contracted rate, but also many times it doesn't price under the contracted rate. And so you may have to pay more for the direct flight than you would say for the connecting flight, because the connecting flight may price under the contracted rate and the direct flight may not. So the direct flight may have what we call an ad collect, meaning it prices outside of the contracted rate, and then the guest has to make up that difference. So we do help you navigate that. And so the answer to the question is yes, you can ask for the direct flights. I can tell you that if you're working with us, we've already done it on your behalf anyway, but sometimes it doesn't actually price under the contracted rate.
Right. And Suzanne is checking in from YouTube. Thanks, Suzanne. And she said, yeah, John is Amsterdam is just like I had said. And that's exactly one of the airports I was talking about. It's crazy where you have to walk off. All the planes are lined up on the tarmac. You got to walk down. You got to get on a bus. It has to drive you to a terminal. They shake you down like you're going through the TSA and with your passport control. And then you go through and then you get to the gate and then you still got to get to the gate. And yeah, it can be complex. So like we talked about, what we're talking about is give enough time to transfer if you have to transfer an airport. My thing lately is if I can get a direct flight, I'll pay the difference because it's worth every penny. Because also, we didn't talk about this, for every transfer or connecting flight, your percentage of losing your bag is highest and grows. So if you get a direct flight, then hopefully you minimize that risk as well. So, all right. And then Peggy is checking in. And she says, I always use a travel agent. I let her worry for me. Right. So it's worry-free travel.
Right. And many times we have a slogan, and many times I fix problems my clients didn't even know they had. So working with the travel agent is really important and good for you, Becky, that you have such loyalty to your agent. It's what we work hard to cultivate in our clients. And so I'm happy for you and your agent.
Right. And Charla is checking in from YouTube, Michael. She goes, if I have Viking Air, but not Viking Air Plus, and I miss my connecting flight because of a delayed flight, will Viking Air still help me get a new flight to get to the ship? Or do I need Viking Air Plus for that?
Yeah, so you don't have to have Viking Air Plus just to have the access to the emergency line with Viking. Every guest who has air through Viking has that access.
Right. And we talked about the relationship with, for example, what you do for your clients, where that gives you an extra layer of protection because now you have that relationship with not just a stranger on the other end of the line. Right. So, yeah. And then say again?
We're the safety net.
Right. You have more of a personal relationship with a safety net. And Sheila is checking in from YouTube. Our layover in Frankfurt is 1 hour and 50 minutes. Will that be enough time?
Yeah, I mean, generally we like to have a minimum of 2 hours. I mean, 1 hour 50 is very close to that, so I think it would be okay. If you do have the option of having it be longer, then I would opt for that. But 1 hour 50 should be sufficient in Frankfurt. It's probably as close as I would go to if it was 1 hour 40 or 1 hour 30, I would probably request a different schedule. But 1 hour 50 should be sufficient.
Right. So we're looking through some of these comments here. Thank you all for the comments here. We're going to go through because we're kind of running towards the end of it. Wendy asked, are those tip amounts per person?
Yes, they were per person.
Right. And Mary's checking in from Facebook. She goes, does Viking carry local currency on board? If not, how do you get small amounts of cash in the ports? We're doing the South America, so we will be several countries.
I think that you'll find that, first of all, the answer to the question is no. They don't offer exchange of cash on board. It's not something that they regularly do. And in certain parts of the world, they're not even legally able to do it. So, I would recommend taking amounts of cash as you need it out of an ATM, making sure that your bank is aware that you're traveling and what you need to travel outside the US in order to use your ATM card. But I would recommend taking money out of an ATM, local currency out of an ATM as you need it. Right.
And Mary also said, we always tip our stewards and wait staff extra. Is that expected?
It's definitely not expected. No.
Right. And that's a whole debate unto itself. If you go in a Facebook group and ask that question, you'll get 100 different answers. It really is a personal decision. But so it's if you choose that gratuity is if someone exceeded and went beyond your expectations and that's how you choose to do it, then of course you do it. But it's definitely personal, in my opinion. Let's see. Great question from Suzanne. Does Viking have any last minute deals ever?
It's a great question. They do. The most of the time it's going to be in the least desirable cabin or something like that. But they definitely do have them. I could say that for 2025 and 2024 for that matter, we see a lot less. We saw a lot less in 2024, and we're seeing a lot less in 2025, simply because the demand is through the roof. I mean, if you look at any of their summer ocean sailings, for instance, there's zero space available. So it is the demand is just very high, and so those deals are fewer and further between than they used to be. But yeah, there are some last minute deals. Usually they would include free air. They're very protective of their pricing model, of how they price, as are many of our vendors like Regent Seven Seas and Silver Sea. And so they may offer an incentive outside of an actual pricing incentive, like free air or beverage package or something else to generate those last minute sales. But there occasionally there are, for sure.
Okay, we're going to try to get everybody's comments here. We got so many. We really appreciate it. But Michael's time is somewhat limited today. He's got so much work to do. He's always backed up. But Mary Ann McDowell actually checked in. She got a great question, Michael. She goes, I have a booking for 2027 with Viking, which I'm going to change to another itinerary. Can I use your services if I change this old booking, or do I have to start a new booking? What is the name of, and then she asked about what type of insurance you use, but that's proprietary to your brand or your company, right?
It is. The policy that we offer is through Allianz, but it cannot be purchased through Allianz because it's actually proprietary to us. That being said, the answer to your question is the booking can be transferred to any agency as long as it's within 60 days of the date of creation. So if the booking was created in the last 60 days, then yes, it could be transferred to an agent. If you're just revising the booking, then unfortunately, no, the booking cannot be transferred. Because if it's outside of that 60 days of the original creation date, they won't allow it to be transferred to an agent.
Right. And Julie had a great question from Facebook. She goes, do you keep stats on which cruises your customers book the most? Like, what's the most popular ones? And also, she's new to river cruising, and she'd like to choose basically one of the favorites to try out with Viking.
Yeah, I don't keep statistics on that, unfortunately, but I can tell you what my clients' favorites are. They're very much the same as my favorites, and that's going to be the Grand European if you're looking for something longer, like 14 days. If you're looking for a shorter itinerary, like 7 days, I would say it's going to be the Rhine Getaway or the Romantic Danube. Those are the most popular, and the ones that my clients like the most. I personally have been on all three of them several times, so I am a bastion of useless knowledge when it comes to those itineraries, as well as several others. I've been, I think, on 28 or 30 Viking cruises all over the world, over 350 cruises all over the world since I started cruising. So while I don't have hard statistics where I could say, 76% of my clients like Rhine Getaway the best, I can speak to what the best choice might be for you based on what your criteria is.
Right. Thank you. And Cindy had a question. She goes, does Viking offer upgrades to bid unlike some other cruise lines?
No, they do not.
Okay. And Suzanne says, just to let you know, Pepto does come in tablet forms, so it's easier to pack and take with you. So we're going to go look through these last couple comments here. There's so many here.
I do see one, John, from Stuart Little, who asked about serious medical issue before you leave, I think in relation to insurance. So I think it's a really great question. I don't know if you see it there.
Is it higher up?
Yeah, it was at the 234.
Oh yeah, right here. Yeah. What if you have a serious medical issue before you leave?
Yeah, so this goes back to what we were talking about with the insurance. If you don't have travel insurance and you have a serious medical issue before you leave, then it's not something that is going to that you're going to be able to get a refund on. The insurance is going to provide that. So if you're traveling, the insurance typically, and many policies are different, but our policy specifically will cover not just the people traveling, but also immediate family members. And that circle of immediate family members is quite wide. So, if you have an in-law or a parent, a grandparent, a child, a grandchild, a sister, a sister-in-law, a niece, a nephew, the circle of immediate family members is quite broad with our policy and would allow you to cancel if they had a serious medical issue and you needed to stay back because of that. So many times I have guests that are like, I have elderly parents. Our policy covers death or illness of an immediate family member. That would include parents, grandparents, all those people that I just mentioned. And so, yes, not just you, but also immediate family members, would be covered under a travel insurance policy, which is why we recommend it.
We've got another good question here from Laura Davis. I wanted to get to Michael. Michael mentioned travel insurance that he offers that covers pre-existing conditions, even when purchased after the typical day, 14 days from the deposit period time. Please provide information about this.
Yeah, so it's a proprietary policy that we offer our guests. It's written specifically for my agency from Allianz. It is not something that they offer directly. So it is something that we are able to offer clients that are booked with us. If you, at every point in time that you do book with us, we send you a brochure about the policy, what it covers. It's a comprehensive platinum level policy, which we do highly recommend. I'd be happy to review it with you directly if you're interested in it.
Great. And Deborah is asking about, how about traveling as a single? What is the best way to research those? Great question. I know that, single travel just seems to be on the rise.
I mean, we get a lot of questions about single travel, and really, just to take a minute to explain, the cruise lines base their profit margins on double occupancy. So unfortunately, that means that a person traveling as a single is going to have to pay for two people, even if it's one person traveling, even though they're not consuming the food for two people, or they're not creating the same amount of waste or garbage that as an example, for that two people would create on board. The reasons why the cruise line charges a single supplement is they're also not getting the revenue from that guest. They're not getting the spa treatments from that guest. They're not getting the shore excursion sales from that guest. That kind of thing. The drink purchases on board. On the mainstream lines, those guests aren't spending money in the casino. They're not purchasing in the gift shop. So it is a lost revenue stream when a guest is traveling as a single, because there's not a second guest that's consuming on board the ship. So unfortunately, many times the guest who's traveling as a single has to pay a single supplement. So the opportunities to travel without a single supplement are few and far between. We have found that our land vendors are much more apt to offer lower single supplements for guests, like Land Tours, like with Talc or another vendor, where the impact of traveling as a single is not as significant as it is on cruises. But on cruises, the revenue is based on that second person being in the room and spending money on board. And so that's where the lost revenue is. So we rarely see low single supplements on cruises. There are some exceptions to that. There are some lines that have single cabins. Viking is not one of them. There are some lines that offer a lower single supplement on river cruising and the lowest category of cabin. Viking is not one of them, but there are other lines that do offer that. And so, and we can help you find those. But it is a question we get a lot. And I wish that we had more options for single guests traveling where they weren't having to spend more money to travel as a single. But unfortunately, the industry just has not adapted to that yet. And it's something that we really see slow movement on. Celebrity Cruises has single cabins. Norwegian has single cabins. Royal Caribbean does offer some single cabins. So, but again, it's on a case-by-case basis with the other lines and what we can find when we can find it for lower single supplements. But the majority of cruise lines and cruises are going to have a single supplement.
Yeah, I was thinking of saying something, and you continued on, Michael, giving great advice. But I was just going to tell her that, yeah, I think if you have that relationship with a great travel agent like Michael, and they're monitoring things for you, and they know that, oh, she'll want this. When there's maybe a different brand or your preferred brand, they can contact you and let you know about the special to help you travel more on a budget, or whatever your unique needs are or desires are. They'll make it work for you, at least help you to have that friend in your corner. It always helps. And one more question that popped up just now here. Sheila goes, my friend and I booked a cruise together and purchased travel shirts separately. If she cancels due to medical reasons, will I have to pay additional travel to travel by myself? Great question.
So it depends on the policy that you purchase, but many times if you both purchase the same policy but separate policies, the answer to the question is no. You might have to front the single supplement, and then the insurance company would reimburse you for it. But it depends really on the policies that you both purchased. I know with our policy, if a single guest is traveling, if single people are traveling together and one cancels, the policy does provide for that other person to travel as a single.
Okay. We're going to wind down. We'll get one more question from Sandy here. How does AirPlus work if we are electing deviations pre-post on our own?
Yeah, so the Air Plus is not related to deviating the air. So the Air Plus does give you a say as to how the flights are routed. But if you're deviating the travel dates of which Viking is providing you service, that means if you're deviating from the embarkation date or you're deviating from when your extension starts with them, whether it's the air city or the date of travel, then there is a deviation fee, and that fee is $100 per person. It is outside of what the Air Plus offers. So you would pay the deviation fee in addition to the Air Plus fee if you chose to do both.
Well, I tell you what, Michael, I think this is one of the best live Q&As we've ever had. And I want to thank everybody for just amazing questions and comments. If I didn't get you to share your comment, please know it wasn't on purpose. We're just trying to keep this as tight as possible as far as getting the live stream, offering as most questions and vibrant conversation and discussion. But I did want to point out, Michael, that Marianne actually said, thank you so much for doing this. You are the TA for me. I'm impressed with your experience, Michael, and knowledge, and the fact that you have a very competent team. I'm glad I came to this talk.
Oh, thank you, Marianne. I really appreciate that. And we're glad you came too. So I hope that I can help you in the future. And, I appreciate you taking time out of your Sunday to watch this video.
Right. And Carolyn said also, Michael is great. Highly recommended services. By the way, he has a great sense of humor. He does.
I got that from my dad. He would be very happy that you said that.
And Wendy Binkley says, thank you. Dave French says, love Michael on YouTube. Sheila says, all my questions answered. Thank you both. And, I really, really appreciate, thank you, Sheila. We really appreciate you all for taking the time this Sunday, joining us. We know we took a little bit of a break. We hope to be more consistent. We try to do these every two times a month, we hope to do. But sometimes, business things might deviate from that. But we really appreciate for sticking us. Please give us a like. Please give us a subscribe. And, of course, Mike would love to have your business. You can reach out to him at 1-800-913-7245. Email him right now at michael@planmycruise. Let him give you a quote on your future booking, and he'd love to have you as a lifelong client. So any final thoughts, Michael? I think we've covered a lot.
Yeah, better, John. I always have final thoughts, right?
Right.
I just want to reiterate that there is no better time, honestly, to book your Viking cruise than now. And I'm not just saying that. You have the option of a $25 deposit to hold your space, $25 per person. You take advantage of the amenities that we offer all of our clients for booking with us, in addition to all of the amenities that Viking offers, which currently includes that choice offer. So for instance, if you book a 14-day river cruise in the Grand European, you're going to get an onboard credit from us. You're going to get the offer from Viking, which can include the Silver Spirits beverage package and gratuities. That's a $47 per person benefit for every day of the cruise. And you can just hold your space with a $25 deposit. So I can attribute that the how busy we have been the past few months to that $25 deposit, because my guests are booking multiple things at the same time, and taking advantage of February's offer is really going to be a great value for them. So now's the best time as any.
Right. Well, wow, we've covered so much. Once again, thank you, Michael, for taking the time out of your busy day to join us. Hope you have a good rest of your weekend. And everybody else, same to you. Be safe and happy cruising.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Bye.
Bye-bye.